In 5 years, I've heard dozens of compliments about my husband Michael, being a model man, trustworthy from neighbors, his clients. On this fishing trip, I was still at ease knowing he was going with his group of trustworthy friends. But when I showed up unexpectedly at the lake, I saw him holding tightly a blonde girl, so young she could have called him Dad, inside an old cabin by an abandoned lake. And his friends were busy holding, kissing other strange women. And of course, there was no sound of water, no sign of a fishing trip, only partying, flesh, and lies. I decided to take an action, not only to surprise them, but to shock their wives too. Before I tell you the full chain of my actions, click like and subscribe to start listening right now. My name is Aurora Miller, 35 years old, living in the suburbs of Detroit, Michigan. I'm the head of department at a reputable travel company, but I'm not a loud person, not into parties, and never asked for much in marriage. Michael, on the other hand, is an insurance agent, praised endlessly by clients as calm, reliable, pleasant to talk to. 7 years ago, we met at a financial seminar in Grand Rapids, fell in love slowly, married after 2 years, and moved into a small house on the city's outskirts with a simple dream. 2 stable jobs, a little dog, and if we were lucky, a child. Close to Michael's birthday, my company assigned me a major contract in Paris, requiring direct negotiation with representatives from a hotel chain. I hesitated, but he said, "It's a great opportunity. Go, I'll have a 3-day fishing trip with Noah, Jack, and Kevin." I nodded and secretly booked a birthday gift. 4 entry tickets to Lake St. Clair Metropark, the place he once called a childhood paradise. I just wanted him to have a memorable getaway with his closest friends. Work in Paris went smoother than expected. I wandered through shops along Rue Saint-Honoré, picking out a warm woody Chanel perfume and a deep brown Louis Vuitton men's bag. I'm not into luxury brands, but I wanted this year's birthday to be different. For last year, we had missed it due to work and, because I had a miscarriage, I booked an early return. My heart ached with anticipation, as if I did everything right, maybe we'd be okay this time. When I arrived home, Detroit's skies were windless, and the early autumn chill slipped through the cracks. I called out to Michael, but only heard his voicemail. The house was quiet. I wasn't worried. Maybe he was still out at the Metropark with his friends. I decided to surprise him, cook a birthday dinner, pack the cake, the gift, and drive straight there. In the kitchen, I washed my hands, tied up my hair, and took the red stand mixer down from the shelf. Apple cake batter spun gently in the bowl, cinnamon filling the room. I remembered when Michael first set that mixer in front of me with a card that read, "So every week is a batch of sweetness, and we'll never run out." I smiled to myself, as if I still believed it. As I packed the cake and soup into the insulated bag, I noticed our dusty wedding photo on the bookshelf. I gently wiped it with my sleeve. Flipping it over, I was startled to find a faded pencil inscription, "We will never betray each other, J." I stood still for a few seconds, heart sinking, not out of suspicion, but because I feared that promises of the past sometimes become the very thing that wounds us the most when broken. I loaded everything into the car: apple pie, chicken soup, honey-glazed wings, grilled cheese, the gift bag, even a small tub of ice cream tucked in its own cooler. I drove down I-94 East, guided by GPS, to Lake St. Clair Metropark. On the radio, "You Are the Sunshine of My Life" played, the song we first heard after moving into this house as newlyweds. Near the destination, I checked the GPS again. But something strange happened. It no longer showed Metropark, but instead redirected to a more remote area, Clinton River Spillway. I frowned, zoomed in, refreshed. Still the same. Michael was there. Maybe they changed fishing spots, I reassured myself, turning off onto another road, driving more than 12 miles further. The road to Clinton River Spillway was rough, cutting through dense woods of pine and oak. The sun dipped near the horizon, its rays slicing through leaves in a strangely beautiful display. But I had no mind to capture it. I only hoped he'd be surprised, that when I showed up with cake and gifts, he'd run to hug me, smiling like he used to. As I parked near the cabin, something felt off. The cars nearby didn't belong to Michael or his friends. There were no fishing rods, no coolers, no low voices of men grilling fish. Instead, there was electronic music. High-pitched laughter of women echoed from afar, mixed with the shuffle of footsteps and cans hitting wooden floors. I stood by the car, gift bag in hand. The sun nearly set. A cold gust slipped down my collar. I didn't know what I was about to face behind that door, only that, with every step I took toward the cabin, I was walking further away from the marriage I once believed was stable. I stood before the old wooden cabin door, electronic music thumping inside like a hammer pounding into my temples. The smell of cigarette smoke and hard liquor seeped through the cracks, mixing with the damp scent of forest after a late afternoon rain, making my stomach twist. I rose on my toes, resting my forehead against the side window frame. The glass was freezing, just like the shock that was slowly spreading through my body. And then, the image inside came into focus, sharp as a blade through my heart. Michael, the husband, the man praised by dozens of clients as model, trustworthy, was sitting on a brown leather sofa, arms wrapped around a blonde girl so young she could call him Dad. His hand slid down her back, eyes distant, but lips whispering something that made her laugh. A spinning disco light cast swirling reds and greens across his face. Noah, Jack, and Kevin, the friends I thought were safe, were also entwined with strange women. The wooden table in the center was piled with liquor bottles, scattered glasses, torn snack bags, and several half-burned cigarettes. No fishing rods, no sound of flowing water, no signs of a fishing trip, only partying, flesh, and lies. I gripped the window frame until my nails dug into the wood, leaving white marks on my fingertips. My heart pounded, torn between crashing through the door or running away. Part of me screamed, "Take evidence!" Another part gasped, Don't look anymore." I trembled, my breath heavy, like dragging an entire chest of pain. My stomach ached sharply, and my body seemed to sense this collapse long before my mind did. I stepped back, leaned against a cold pine tree, inhaled deeply. From the cabin came the clinking of glasses, the giggle of the blonde girl as Michael leaned in to whisper. The bass beat of electronic music made the window frame tremble. I bit my lip, tasting blood, but kept the phone in hand. I opened the camera, switched to video mode, and pressed the lens against the window. The image trembled with my heartbeat, but I held on. The camera began to pan. Michael and the blonde girl, his hand on her thigh. Noah pouring liquor for a brunette. Jack hugging a petite Asian girl. Kevin laughing loudly, slapping another woman's leg. I zoomed in on every face, every detail. The liquor label, their phones left carelessly on the table, the watch Michael wore, the anniversary gift I gave him our 3rd year. The disco lights flashed, casting bursts of color across their faces. I recorded it all, as if etching every line of betrayal into my memory. When the video reached nearly 2 minutes, I stopped, hands trembling so badly I could barely press the button. Cold sweat ran down my spine, even though it was only 45 degrees Fahrenheit outside. I took a deep breath, pressed the phone against my chest, feeling my heart racing out of rhythm. I took another step back, as if standing there any longer would make me shatter into pieces on the damp wooden ground. No one inside noticed me. They were too busy laughing, drinking, exchanging secret touches. The world beyond that glass belonged to another dimension, one where I had never existed. I turned away, walked back to the car, each step heavy as stone. The apple pie, chicken soup, and wings still lay on the back seat. Birthday gift right beside them. I started the engine, kept the lights off, stared straight ahead. On the radio, "Someone Like You" played, Adele's voice slicing through a fresh wound like a knife. I bit my lip, not crying out loud, but tears streamed silently into my collar, like the cold rain of early autumn. I don't remember how long I drove back to Detroit. I don't remember if I stopped at red lights or used turn signals. I only remember one thing. I didn't turn on the interior light the whole way, so I wouldn't have to see the untouched birthday cake, the still unlit candles, or the Chanel, Louis Vuitton gift bag lying still like a cruel joke. When I got home, I didn't turn on the lights. I stood in the familiar darkness of the kitchen, where just that morning, the scent of cinnamon and coffee still lingered. I took off my coat, tossed my bag onto a chair, and switched on the small lamp on the kitchen counter. A soft yellow light lit up the red stand mixer still sitting there, silent like a helpless witness. I pulled out my phone, sat on the floor, back against the wall, and opened the video I had just recorded. My hands shook so badly I had to use both to steady the phone. When Michael appeared on screen, I paused. At the moment, he leaned toward that girl's ear. His eyes looked no different from how he looked at me when we first got married. Not the eyes of a man coerced, but of one enjoying himself. I hit play. Once, then twice, then 3 times. Each viewing made my heart tighten like barbed wire. But I kept watching, like someone desperate to confirm they weren't imagining things. I took screenshots of every face, zoomed in on every detail. I saw Noah's face, Jack's watch, Kevin's dragon-tattooed arm. But the girls were strangers. Long hair, short skirts, red lipstick, easy smiles. But I knew. I'd find them. I opened my laptop, connected to the internet, turned on incognito mode. I started searching for every tiny clue in the video. Dress brands, phone models, tattoos, bracelets. I scrolled through hundreds of Instagram accounts from check-ins near Clinton River Spillway. The first name that popped up was Christina, the blonde girl in the video. Nearly 40,000 followers, always posting party pics and life coaching. I clicked on a photo, my heart sinking. It was taken tonight, with the caption, "Suburban Detroit sure knows how to throw a party." I kept going. An hour later, I found Lara, the brunette drinking with Noah, then Alina, the girl with a wild tattoo on her nape, and finally, Dasha, who once worked with Kevin at the insurance company, but was fired for internal scandals. With each discovery, I saved the info, screenshots, account links, check-in locations. I created a folder on my desktop. Truth undeniable. Inside were images, videos, names, timestamps, everything that could make these lies inescapable. Outside, it started to drizzle. Rain tapped the window like the knock of my own conscience. In a brief moment, I asked myself, what am I doing? Who am I hunting? And then what? But instantly, a voice inside roared. They didn't hesitate when their hands touched your husband's back. I shut the laptop, sat still for a long time. Not from exhaustion, but because I felt like I had just crossed into another world. A world where I was no longer Michael's wife. I was a witness, a data collector, someone who had seen it with her own eyes, and now couldn't look away. I stayed awake all night. Not out of grief. That feeling had retreated, like a coward hiding behind the curtain, waiting for its moment to surge. I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't break anything. I simply sat there, hands wrapped around a cup of cold tea, eyes fixed on the computer screen, my mind calculating. I knew I wasn't the only one betrayed that night. Emily, Noah's wife, is an elementary school teacher. I once sat next to her at last spring's BBQ, when we laughed because Michael forgot to cook the chicken through. Heather, Jack's wife, is a nurse at an outpatient clinic 3 blocks from my house. And Claire, Kevin's wife, is perhaps the gentlest person I've ever met, always bringing dessert to our group gatherings. I don't know what made me decide to pull them into the circle of truth. Maybe because I didn't want to be alone, or because I believed they had the right to know. But I knew one thing for sure. If I stayed silent, this would happen again. To me, to them, to the women after us. I opened Facebook, Created a new account with my secondary email. Username Marlin Observer. Named after the fish Michael once called hard to catch, unpredictable, full of power. A mocking name, but enough to make me feel I still controlled something. I created a chat group, named it Our Fishermen. The group icon was a torn fishing net. I added 7 people: Emily Ross, Heather Lane, Claire Montgomery, and the 4 girls from the video: Christina, Lara, Alina, Daisha. Each time I clicked add, my heart beat a little faster. I wrote nothing. No intro, no apology, no warning. I just sent one message, the video. 3 minutes later, the typing dots appeared. The first to respond was Emily Ross. What the hell is this? Then Heather Lane. Jack said they went fishing. Claire directly called Kevin out in the group. Claire Montgomery. Did you lie to me? Who is that sitting on your lap? A minute passed, then 2, then 3. The girls began to react. Christina Williams. I don't know what this group is, but secretly recording people is illegal. Lara Stevens. We were invited. Grown men have the right to have fun. No one forced anyone. Alina Gray. Who filmed this? Creeping like a psycho Dasha Blake. Whoever's wife you are, go ask your husband. Don't drag us in. No one knew who I was. And I didn't speak. But the wives couldn't hold back anymore. Messages poured in like a storm breaking after long thunder. Emily. Noah, you really think I wouldn't find out? Heather. I'm calling a lawyer. Come home now, or don't come at all, Claire. Kevin, I forgave you once. There won't be a second time. The chat turned into a place of venting, accusations, panic, and also pain. A group that once held only a few lines of text now became a battlefield, where the truth ripped off every layer of mask. I sat there, reading each message, but not joining. No one knew Marlin Observer was Aurora. No one knew the one who had pulled the curtain down was me, the wife who once stood alone in the kitchen mixing birthday cake batter with the red mixer. And I didn't need them to know, because my goal wasn't to be comforted. My goal was to make sure no one closed their eyes to weekend fishing trips again. The next morning, Detroit drizzled. Ash-gray light slid into the kitchen through the window pane, casting weary shadows onto the tiled floor. I sat at the dining table in my old cream sweater, hands around a cup of cold coffee. My phone lay in front of me, screen still open to the Our Fishermen group, with nearly 80 unread messages. Around 8 a.m., I heard a car pulling up outside. Familiar footsteps, keys in the lock. Michael walked in with a face weathered by sun and wind, the kind of sun and wind men bring back after a night of partying. His coat soaked, his shoes muddy. He pulled off his scarf and called toward the kitchen, his voice light as if nothing had happened yesterday. Honey, we got stuck in the rain, so we stayed at the cabin. I'm starving. Is there anything to eat? I said nothing. I just picked up my phone, opened the video again, pressed play, and laid it neatly on the table, screen facing him. Michael looked at the screen. Took about 3 seconds to recognize who he was holding, in what position, and where. His eyes widened. His breathing slowed. His hand froze midair. I still said nothing. I stood up, walked to the fridge, opened it to take out milk. Only the video's background music, disco bass, looped the part where he bent down to whisper to the blonde girl. Who gave you this? Michael tried to speak, voice hoarse. I set the milk down, lifted my head to meet his eyes for the first time. No one. I filmed it. His face went pale. Immediately, he switched tactics, like an insurance agent seasoned in handling incidents. Aurora, you have to understand, it was just a joke. We drank too much, and they showed up unexpectedly. I didn't plan anything, I laughed. Not a joyful laugh, but a tired one, chilling. I pulled my phone off the table, opened the Our Fishermen group, turned the screen to him. A cascade of messages from last night. Emily. Noah's too scared to come home. Heather. I just smashed the TV. I don't care. Claire. I tore up the reconciliation papers. I'm not stupid anymore. Then below, Christina. I'll sue if the video spreads. Lara. Women losing control. Pathetic. Michael read for a while, then slumped into a chair. His eyes flicked quickly, his hand to his forehead. You made this group? You added them? I didn't answer. Instead, I opened an email tab still left from last night. Subject line: Termination notice. Employee Code of Conduct violation. Sender: Midwest Insurance, HR. Kevin was fired this morning, I said slowly. Noah and Jack have been suspended. And you? Michael closed his eyes, exhaling as if to force air out of his chest. I didn't do anything. They dragged me into it. I just sat there. I nodded slightly, as if weighing a faulty incident report. And you put your hand on her thigh because of a cramp? He didn't reply. He sat there, staring at his own hands, the same hands that had stroked another woman's hair the night before. I pulled a chair, sat down opposite him, my voice soft, but each word heavy. You think this will leave no trace, Michael? A group of married men going fishing, then partying with girls who were expelled, who were involved in company misconduct? Have you imagined the consequences? He stammered, as if unaccustomed to my calmness. Aurora, I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I looked at the clock. 8:27 a.m. I stood, grabbed my wallet and coat. No need for apologies. I don't need apologies now. I need the truth, and I already have it. I walked out of the house without slamming the door, without crying, without a deep breath. Detroit's sky still gray, but I felt I was no longer in the fog. I was standing on solid ground, cold, damp, but real. 2 days after that morning, when Michael bowed his head in the kitchen, I received a text from the familiar OB clinic. Your test results are ready. Please come pick them up. I had postponed this routine checkup for weeks because of the Paris job. Deep down, I knew I might be past a cycle, but I kept telling myself it was stress. That morning, I drove to the small clinic on Gratiot Avenue. The doctor, a middle-aged woman named Donna, looked at me with the kind of gentle eyes I've seen hundreds of times in my own work. The eyes of someone about to say something you can't undo. The results show you're 12 weeks pregnant, Aurora, Donna said softly. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and citrus oil from a diffuser. I stared at the printout, the HCG numbers, the graphs, but they felt like a foreign language. Part of me wanted to smile, to ask Donna, is the baby healthy? Another part dropped like a stone, as if I had just been handed a deferred sentence, a sentence forcing me to make the biggest decision of my life. On the way home, I didn't play music. Detroit that noon had light snow despite the calendar reading spring. Each snowflake hitting the windshield was a question mark. What will I do with this child? I had prepared divorce papers. I had filmed the video. I had gathered evidence. But now, my body carried a life that bore no guilt. My hands trembled on the wheel, a different trembling than that night at Clinton River Spillway. This time, not from shock, but from facing a choice between new life and the old ending. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on my side, the nightlight casting pale yellow streaks across the wall. I opened my phone, looked again at the truth. Undeniable folder. Michael holding the blonde girl. Screenshots of every face. I swiped right, left, finally stopped at the blurry ultrasound photo Donna had given me. Tiny, light as a speck of dust. But it was my child. At exactly 11 p.m., the phone vibrated. The screen showed Mom, with an Arizona number. I answered. On the other end, my mother's voice was hoarse, tinged with a sigh. My girl, are you okay? I bit my lip, said nothing. I heard wind on her side. Maybe she was sitting on her porch in Tucson, where she grows rows of cactus. Her voice slow, like speaking to herself. I don't know what's happening, but I feel you're hurting. Don't stay silent with me, Aurora. You can start over any time. I'll be here. My tears fell hot as salt onto the pillow. I wanted to tell her, I'm pregnant. I'm scared, but the words caught in my throat. I only exhaled, my breath trembling like a child caught doing something wrong. On the line, my mother didn't press. She stayed silent for a few seconds, then said one sentence, light as placing a pebble in my hand. Don't think you have to choose everything today. Just choose to love yourself first. The call ended. The screen went black. I lay there, hand on my belly. In the empty room, for the first time in weeks, I felt another heartbeat, a small one inside me, while I was learning to listen to my own. 3 days after the late-night call from my mother, I sat across from Michael in the living room. No music, no clatter of dishes, no scent of coffee as usual. Only a single sheet of white A4 paper lay on the wooden table between us. On it, in my steady handwriting, were 3 bullet points. Michael stared at it as if it were an insurance form a client refused to sign, confused, cautious, afraid to ask outright. I didn't circle around. I haven't filed for divorce, I said, but if you want to save any part of what's left of this marriage, these are the conditions. He swallowed, lips pressed, eyes scanning my handwriting. 1. You must start therapy, 1 session per week for 6 months. 2. Cut off all contact with the group, Noah, Jack, and Kevin. No meetings, no calls, no texts. 3. Be home more. At least 4 dinners a week together. No parties, no overwork excuses. I looked up at him. No tears, no trembling voice, no nostalgia. I was done with apologies and remembering. I only wanted to know if the man before me was still worthy of being the father of the child inside me. Michael sat silent for a long while, then sighed, nodding. I'll do it. I'll do everything. I don't want to lose you. I looked at him more closely, not to measure his sincerity, but to ask myself if I had once loved these eyes so much I forgave all the silences behind them. I'm not giving you a chance because I still love you, I said slowly, but because I'm about to become a mother. And I need to be sure this child won't grow up in a house full of unhealed wounds. Michael looked stunned, as if doused with cold water. He stammered, You're pregnant? I didn't answer. I stood, took from my coat pocket a black and white ultrasound, and placed it on the table. A blurry photo, just a small round shape, but the first being I believed, wouldn't betray me. Michael looked at it, his hands trembling lightly. He placed both palms on his knees, head bowed. I know I've done wrong. I'll do it right this time, for you. For the baby, I didn't answer immediately. I walked toward the door, my back to him. I'll be watching, Michael. Not with the eyes of a wife anymore, but of a mother. I closed the door softly behind me, leaving him in the room that used to be our home. Now it was only a test, and he was the one sitting the final exam. 5 months passed quietly. Michael went to therapy every week, or at least he said so. He cleared dishes after meals, came home on time, some days even brought hydrangeas. The flowers I didn't much like, but couldn't bring myself to refuse. He didn't mention the group anymore. No more disco music in the car. I felt peace, or rather a silence that wasn't truly peace. I spent most of my time at home, reading parenting books, practicing breathing for expectant mothers, keeping up with regular ultrasounds. On mornings free from nausea, I baked banana bread, played soft jazz, imagined whether the baby's room would be mint green or butter yellow. These small things helped me forget old cracks, or at least cover them with new cloth. Until one weekend afternoon, I was folding freshly washed baby clothes when my phone buzzed. A message from Jenna, my college friend now living in Miami. The message had no words, just a photo. I opened it, and instantly, the air drained from the room. The photo, shot from a distance in dim bar light. Michael, white shirt, left hand holding a cocktail, leaning back laughing at Kevin. But what clenched my heart wasn't his laughter, but the girl sitting on his lap. A brunette with wavy hair in a short, fragile red dress. Her arm draped lightly behind Michael's neck, and Michael's hand slid straight under the red fabric, as if they couldn't be bothered to hide anything anymore. On the left edge of the frame, Kevin and Noah sat close to 2 other women, one in a gold sequin dress, the other with messy green hair, both leaning into their chests, laughing as if the world had no wives or consequences. Neon bar lights reflected off glasses, skin, and pale streaks on Michael's collar. Lipstick or light, I didn't know. But one thing I knew clearly. This wasn't the first time. And definitely not an accident. Jenna's second message. I'm in Miami, but someone I know in Pontiac sent me this. Thought you should know Pontiac, a town 30 minutes from Detroit. No reason for Michael to be there. Unless the no contact group still existed, and Wednesday therapy sessions. The easiest excuse in the world. I sat down, hands on my belly. The baby kicked softly, the second time today. I began to cry. Not violently, just silent tears streaming like someone splashed with cold water in winter. I should have ended everything that night at Clinton River Spillway. I knew that. I had enough evidence, enough hurt, enough pain to walk away. But I didn't. I believed. Because of an ultrasound. Because of a promise. Because of a hope as thin as an eggshell I tried to keep whole, only because inside it a life was growing. I opened the drawer under my desk. Inside lay the blank divorce papers. I had kept them there for 2 months, a reminder. Don't forget you were once strong enough to stand up. I took the ultrasound, placed it next to the bar photo. 2 opposing realities, one a beginning, one an end. Then I pulled out a black pen, inhaling deeply. I didn't wait for Michael to explain. Didn't ask why he was there. Didn't raise the question whether he wanted to try anymore. It was too late. Not too late because of one photo, but because I had stayed silent long enough to know I no longer believed any apology. That evening, while Michael was still at the office, or the bar, I took the divorce papers from the drawer and wrote each line by hand. Not typed, not pre-printed. I wanted every stroke to be a clean cut. Reason: prolonged dishonest behavior, repeated despite warning and opportunity to change. I request full custody of the child. All relevant evidence will be attached. I opened my phone again, saved screenshots of the chat, the bar photo, notes of canceled therapy sessions, all sent to my personal email, printed, arranged carefully into a file, as if an accountant quietly closing the year's books. Near midnight, I heard the door click softly. Michael came home. I turned off the bedroom light, lay on my side, feigning deep sleep. He tiptoed in, the smell of alcohol and cigarette smoke still on his clothes. No words, no touch as before. He climbed into bed, lying a space away. Perhaps he thought I knew nothing. Perhaps he thought tomorrow would be another normal day. But the next morning, Detroit was windy. I called Jenna's lawyer, a woman named Louise Kramer, voice firm, no small talk. I scheduled to meet her Tuesday, bringing all documents. Louise said, "We have enough to demand fair asset division and revoke unsupervised access." I only nodded. No triumph, no relief, just calm. At noon, I began packing the past. I took out the things I once cherished. The silver wedding frame, the one I dusted off in Act 1, now only a faded line of words with no meaning. I wrapped it in an old kitchen towel, placed it in a box. The red KitchenAid mixer, the emblem of sweet Sundays, I dismantled, wiped clean, and laid at the bottom. Not because I hated it, but because I no longer wanted to live inside a lie's nostalgia. I stood before the closet, touched the ivory wool dress, a gift from my ex-mother-in-law upon learning I was pregnant. I had planned to keep it for the blessing it once carried. But now, the blessing no longer belonged to someone worthy. I folded it steadily, placed it into the donation bag by the porch. That afternoon, I cleared the fridge, washed each jar, threw out his favorite yogurt, peeled off the note, "Today, 6 p.m. is therapy," from the door. No one was in therapy here. Nothing left to cover. Before dusk, I wrote a small note, left it on the dining table. The divorce papers will be handled by attorney Louise Kramer. All contact from today onward will be through legal representation, Aurora. I didn't know if Michael would read it right away when he came home. I didn't care. That night, I went to bed early. No sedatives, no body pillow. I simply placed my hand on my belly, and for the first time in a long while, I spoke aloud, if only a whisper in the dark. We'll be okay. I promise. Tuesday morning, I stepped out of the car slowly, holding the door for balance. My feet had begun to swell, each step weighed down as if by extra kilos on my knees. I stood before attorney Louise Kramer's office, a 3-story red brick building in Midtown, drew a deep breath through my mask, and whispered to myself, or to the baby shifting inside, "We're almost done, sweetheart." Just a little more inside, the smell of coffee and printer paper hit my heightened pregnancy senses. Louise, mid-40s, black hair tied back, thin-framed glasses, didn't offer comfort. She spoke of rights, boundaries, strategies so I could withdraw safely, leaving no loophole for Michael to strike back. I nodded repeatedly, taking notes but resting a hand on my belly as the baby turned. A reminder I wasn't alone. First, separate your bank accounts. Remove your name from joint assets except the house, and stop using the supplementary credit card. I'll file a temporary motion to freeze assets so he can't sell anything before division, she said. I opened my laptop, showed her the credit statements. My husband still spending at bars, ride shares to unknown condos. Louise nodded, typing fast. This is strong evidence. Both wasteful spending and deceit. You can use it to ask for custody if you want. And I recommend you do leaving the office. I gripped the stair railing, the other hand supporting my belly. For a moment, I paused on the third step, heart racing, breath short, but smiled as the baby gave a clear kick. I whispered, "We're okay, aren't we?" "We're almost home." I went to the bank, changed my account PIN, canceled the supplementary card. The teller, a woman with tight curls, asked softly, "Everything okay, Miss Aurora?" I only smiled faintly, my hand instinctively on my belly. It is now. That afternoon, I returned home. Michael still knew nothing. He was at work, or pretending. I packed some personal items, things from before marriage, my mother's photo album, an old music box, a few journals. I also removed each wedding photo from the wall, not smashing or tearing, just placing them in a box, like someone preparing to leave a shelter, leaving emotion behind. Bending to pick up a bag of baby toys, I had to steady myself against the table, breathing hard. I stroked a tiny cream-colored baby sweater and whispered, "You won't grow up in this house. I promise." On my desk, I left a note, not for Michael, but to remind myself. I wrote, "If next time you think of returning, ask, does that person respect you when no one's watching?" I turned on the rice cooker, cooked one last meal, not for him. For me, the 8 months pregnant woman who had just signed divorce papers, beginning a new chapter without needing anyone's approval. I woke earlier than usual Saturday morning. Michael still asleep, his back to me, breathing steady but no longer intimate. I didn't wake him, not to say goodbye. I stood quietly a few minutes, hand on my belly, the place where life was growing even as the world outside cracked. We'll be okay. From today, I placed the last pale yellow baby shirt into a cloth bag, pulled the zipper, the dry sound echoing through the room that once was our nest. Each step down the stairs was an echo of days once flooded with hope, laughter in the kitchen, summer barbecue smells, the Christmas tree Aurora decorated alone. Now it was only a blurred backdrop of an expired chapter. At the door, I looked around one last time. The beige curtains I once chose. The wedding frame now gone. The kitchen where I had stayed up late cooking chicken soup for Michael when he was sick. Cold now, as if no one had ever placed a whole heart in it. I didn't cry. Not a drop. Opening the door, the April morning wind of Detroit lifted my coat's hem, left hand gripping a small suitcase, right hand carrying the baby bag. Walking slowly, feet swollen, back aching, but upright, steady. As if each step was a new heartbeat for rebirth. The Uber was waiting. The driver, a black woman with hair in a high bun, around 50, stepped out to help when she saw me struggle with the trunk, her eyes not asking questions, only touching me with something like understanding. On the way to the airport, I received a message from Attorney Louise. The court has approved the temporary asset division. Michael hasn't responded. I nodded to myself, then opened my phone's playlist. A wordless piano piece played, soft notes between the car's motion and my belly's small stirrings. We're on our way now, love. This trip has no escort. But Mommy knows the road. I didn't look back. Didn't think about what Michael would do, waking up to find me gone. That was no longer my concern. My concern was building a new home, one without toxic silence, without empty apologies, without an Our Fisherman chat group. Only me, the child inside me, and the kindness yet to be written. That morning, sitting in the small rented room in Grand Rapids, I opened my laptop and logged into the camera app installed in the old house. The camera Michael once asked me to set up for security monitoring. Now it had become the eye that confirmed one thing. I had no regrets about leaving. On the screen appeared a familiar scene. Michael waking up in the dim morning light, filtering through the bedroom window. He sat up groggily, reaching for the other side of the bed, where I used to lie, then stopped. The blanket remained smooth, the pillow untouched. His face tensed. He called out, "Aurora?" No reply. No footsteps in the kitchen. No smell of toast. No sound of the coffee machine. He went downstairs, opened the fridge. Empty. He went back up, opened the closet. 1/3 of the drawer, empty. My beige tote bag I used for work, gone. The wedding photo on the shelf, missing. He rushed to the garage, opened the trunk. No suitcase, no coat, nothing. I watched him stumble as he called my number, one hand trembling, the other clawing his hair. When the call went to voicemail, he threw the phone onto the couch and roared like the house had betrayed him. But the house was only reflecting exactly what he had sown. I turned off the screen. My belly pressed tight beneath my sweater. I stroked it gently and said, "We made the right move, my love." 2 days later, Michael showed up at Louise Carter's office, disheveled in a wrinkled suit, eyes sunken from sleepless nights. He came unannounced, demanding to speak privately with his wife's legal representative. Louise let him in without ceremony. She slid a thin folder across the table. "This is the divorce petition. It includes asset division, custody of the unborn child, and the right to live free from betrayal." Michael gasped. His hands trembled as he opened the file. The first page showed screenshots from the Our Fisherman group chat, messages filled with crude jokes, photos of strange women, and party plans. Next was a clear photo from the bar that night. Him in a white shirt, laughing, his hand under the short red dress of the brunette on his lap. Beside him, Kevin, Noah, cocktails, dim lights, and women pressed close. Michael sprang up, slamming the table. "It was just a joke, just one fun night. Is she really going to destroy this family?" Louise didn't blink. "What family? A pregnant woman forced to watch her husband touch someone else? A wife sleeping in a house that feels more like a boarding room in a life she no longer owns?" Michael fell silent. Just then, his phone buzzed. An email from HR. Required to appear for explanation regarding ethical misconduct, potentially affecting insurance contracts under your supervision. Attached. Images from the Our Fisherman group. Michael closed his eyes, exhaling hard. But this time, no one answered him. Not Aurora. Not the old friends who had left the group. And Louise, with calm finality, said, "You were loved once. But you traded it, Michael. And now, she's chosen to save herself." At that moment, I stood in front of the white-painted wooden door of a small rental home in Grand Rapids, a town far removed from old memories. My belly made getting out of the car slower. My feet were lightly swollen, my back aching, but I still lifted the box onto the porch myself. The house had only one bedroom, a small kitchen with an old fridge and a window overlooking a weedy lawn. But there was no smell of cigarettes here, no drunken male voices, no sense of being watched. That first night, sitting among unopened cartons, I placed my hand on my belly and whispered, "We're safe now, baby." I didn't need anyone to call me strong or weak. I just knew I was doing the right thing, not to take revenge, not to win anything, but to ensure my child would grow up in a world cleaner and healthier than the one I had endured. And that was the true beginning of the life I chose, for myself and for my child. The early days in Grand Rapids passed slowly, but with order. I began with small things, changing the curtains, buying a pot of lavender, pinning the upcoming prenatal appointment to the fridge. In the mornings, I woke a bit earlier to brew ginger tea, elevating my legs with a cushion as the swelling had grown more noticeable in my 8th month. My back still ached, especially on cold nights, but I no longer had to pretend I was okay for anyone. That first week, I visited the nearest maternity clinic, a small facility next to a secondhand bookstore. The doctor, a black woman in her 50s named Monica, had a warm voice and gentle hands. When she pressed the ultrasound device to my belly, a steady heartbeat rang out. I cried. For the first time, I cried not out of hurt, but from knowing I could still feel joy. I began working remotely for a data management firm in Chicago, an old collaborator before I left Michael's company. They didn't ask questions, only emailed. "Aurora, if you need flexible hours, just let us know." I owned my time, sitting at the old kitchen table, bathed in sunlight, typing as my belly occasionally stirred. Each afternoon, I strolled to the park nearby, where a group of single moms held children's story time. I didn't know anyone, but one day, a woman named Sarah, blonde, glasses, belly as round as mine, approached and handed me a flyer for the Moms Rising Up group. "If you need someone to come with you during labor, we've got a volunteer list." I nearly laughed at the strangeness, but felt deeply moved by such simple kindness. That evening, I video called my mother. She still lived in the Ohio apartment where I grew up. I didn't say much, only, "I'm okay, and I'm about to become a mother." She paused, then replied softly, "I know. And I'm proud of you." I ended the call and sat quietly for a long time, staring out the misty window. No more keys turning at 2 a.m. No more holding my breath when Michael came home, reeking of alcohol and unfamiliar perfume. The house didn't have much, but it had my voice talking to the baby each night. Today, I finished the report. I ate all my vegetable soup. I even signed up for prenatal yoga, even though I was nervous. But I did it. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know this. I am walking slowly, surely, and for the first time in years, on a path that is truly my own. I began feeling contractions one early April morning. A light drizzle tapped against the roof like a lullaby. I was folding baby clothes passed down from the Moms Rising Up group, tiny onesies still faintly scented from another mother's fabric softener. The first contraction wasn't strong, just a tightening, then release. But I knew. The baby was knocking on the world's door. I called Sarah. She arrived in under 20 minutes with a backpack, a water bottle, and a backup oxygen tank. She didn't ask much, just held my hand as I quietly gathered my documents and prenatal records, then said, "Let's go." At the birthing center, I didn't scream like in the movies. I stayed silent, eyes closed through each wave of pain, trying to breathe steadily. I had no Michael beside me, no one filming or preparing name cards, but I had Sarah's hand on my shoulder, the nurse's whisper, "You're doing great!" And I had myself, whole, steady, no longer trembling like before. When the first cry rang out, I felt every cell in my body release, weightless. He was placed on my chest, reddish, wet, but warm and alive. I stroked his back and whispered like a prayer, "Hello, love. I've waited so long for you." In that moment, I was no longer the betrayed woman, no longer the forgotten wife, nor the one who lived in a house full of silence. I was simply Aurora, a mother, and my son was proof that I had not broken. The next day, I named him Eli James. Eli meaning my light in Hebrew, and James after my grandfather, the only one in my family who ever said, "You were born to live a life unlike any other." When I carried Eli out of the hospital, Michigan's skies broke into sun after days of gloom. I walked slowly through the parking lot, holding him close to my chest, legs still sore from labor, but my posture straight. In the car, I played soft music. "Here Comes the Sun" by the Beatles, a song my mother once sang to me. My baby slept peacefully in the back seat, his tiny hand grasping at the air like he was trying to hold the whole world. I suddenly remembered the first blurry ultrasound, the one that made me choose not to give up. This wasn't just the journey of becoming a mother. It was the journey of my own rebirth. I, Aurora, had been born again in the moment I brought my son into the world. I began recording the first episode of my podcast on a quiet evening, after Eli had fallen asleep, and the only sound in the house was the soft hum of the heater. The mic was secondhand, bought from someone in the single mom support group. I propped my laptop on a stack of baby books, opened the recording app, and stared at the blank screen. No polished intro, no fancy music, just a whisper, from me, to the women who once lived with a nameless fear inside their own homes. I named the podcast Silent No More. The first episode lasted only 11 minutes. I shared the moment I stood in that empty house, realizing the pillow beside me was still smooth, and the kitchen no longer smelled like coffee. I told the story of packing everything on a rainy night, of placing my hand on my belly and saying, "Sweetheart, we're leaving." Not to run, but to live. I didn't think anyone would listen. But a week later, 3 emails arrived. One from a 50-year-old nurse in Nebraska who wrote, "I never told anyone my husband controlled even what I ate. But now, I've started to speak up." Another from a mother of 2 in Arkansas. "I cried when you talked about swollen feet and unopened boxes." I've been there each episode, each story, each reply. I no longer felt alone on this journey. We, single moms, women once silenced, once disregarded, were rebuilding our lives through our own narratives. A small Facebook group was born. We shared low-cost recipes, tips on applying for childcare aid, and dreams we hadn't dared name. I never intended to become a symbol. I was just Aurora, 34, living in Grand Rapids, with a son named Eli, and a voice no longer shaking when I retold what had happened. In episode 10, I said, "If you're hearing this, and you're in a home where every step is cautious, every meal is a negotiation, and every night is filled with worry, know this: you're not crazy, you're not weak, you're simply living in an unsafe environment, and you deserve a different life." No one taught me to do this. No one certified me to heal anyone. But I've learned this: when a woman begins to believe in her own worth, the world cannot silence her again. And that's how I end this journey. Not with a glorious victory, but with a small light I switch on each night, where I tell my story and listen to others. Because not being silent anymore is the most powerful healing we can offer each other. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of yourself, please share it with another woman. It could be your daughter, your sister, or yourself 20 years ago. And if you're still here, thank you for listening. It's never too late to begin again. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know. Where are you listening from?